Hi, everybody. This is Lens Lounge, and I want you to introduce you to Heidi. I met Heidi through Peter Wands in a presentation he did, and she's a photographer and she did documentary. So I'm going to start with the first question. So, Heidi, where are you from?
Oh, um, my accent is American English because that's how I learned English from American parents. But I was born and raised in Switzerland, um, and came to Scotland in 1969, and
Oh,
I've been here ever since.
oh wow. Damien?
Yep. How did you get into photography, Heidi? As
My
what?
father was a photographer. He was a motor racing photographer, so cameras and photography and anything photography related was quite familiar to me. It felt I was surprised that families didn't have cameras, if you like. So getting a small Instamatic and graduating to bigger cameras was nothing unusual.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And was Stockbridge Collection Project your first project, or were there projects previously?
Um, um, I haven't really done any intentional projects because I'm not a full-time professional photographer or haven't had that space, if you like. I've had to do social work. I've raised kids. Um, So the project that was the Stockport collection, I I think the most accurate thing to say is it kind of happened to me rather than I instigated it. It was kind of a project in reverse. I didn't set out to go to a community and develop a project about it and present it to the world. I went and had some weekends, took some rolls of film, put them away in a box for 45, 50 years, and then found them again and have got to know the community 45 years later as a result of the project. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a bit like Vivian May's kind of story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It kind of answers the question, the next question that I was going to ask, which was how did you come about it? What was the link to Stockport? Was it to visit family or?
No, I was doing a degree, my first degree at Stirling University, and
Mhm.
I went to visit a friend in Stockport who happened to be in Stockport, and they were in a flat nearby, and they were busy studying with their stuff. So I went off and found a noisy market, and I think I went 3 times.
Uh-huh.
From a diary I dug up, it looked like I went 3 times. 45, 50 years is a long time to remember details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I shot 8 rolls of film over those 3 weekends. And one of them was color, but we didn't put any color in the book because it was just one roll of film.
Mhm.
And so it's 8 rolls of film, and about 80 pictures, 80 negatives sort of made the cut, if you like, out of those rolls of film.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
that I mean, I was a student. I didn't have the money to do any
Yeah.
more. And there, yeah, so yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks.
So should we start looking at your images then? And then we'll go ask you more.
Sure, yeah, sure. And I can tell you the stories behind them. That's the fun part for me.
Yep.
Hold on.
So this is how it sort of started, okay? So this is during lockdown. I found some negatives and I showed them to a friend who said these should be on social media. People will recognize these people. And I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, I don't believe that. These are really old. But it was lockdown and there was nothing much going on. We were all going online, weren't we? Especially photographers and people trying to connect with each other. So I started sharing them on Instagram and a few people responded from the Stockport area. And then one person said to me, wrote and said, my granddad had a ladies' underwear stall in that market. Do you have pictures of my grandparents or my granddad? And I wrote back and said, I wasn't looking at the stall contents, I was looking at the characters. But then I looked through my negatives and found this guy, and I thought, I wonder. So then I posted him, and she wrote back, said, "That is my granddad, Arthur Chadwick." And it was this bizarre kind of being asked to find somebody and then finding them. It was just wonderful. And that really sort of spurred me on to find some more. And she gave me a little spiel about him and his history for the book. It
So
was lovely.
what was the history about him? Do you remember it?
I think he was, if I remember rightly, I think he was a Jewish immigrant.
Yeah.
He was born in a poor Orthodox Jewish family in 1904.
Oh, wow.
By his mid-teens, he'd become the main breadwinner with his father. His father, Isaac, started selling wares on Stockport Market, ladies' underwear and nightwear. By the end of his life, Arthur had sold on the market for over 50 years in all weathers.
That's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lovely.
It
Yeah,
does-
I like the clothes pegs.
I love the clothes
Yeah.
pegs, definitely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was about to say, my
He look.
Oops. You go ahead, Damon.
It looks like I don't know if anybody's ever said it, but it looks like. Have you ever heard of Bernard Cribbins?
No.
Yeah, he does a bit, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's a bit self-conscious. There's 2 or 3 of him in my
Mhm.
series of negatives, and there's one he's looking at me, and it was the one I took before this one. So he's looking
Right.
at me like, "What are you up to?" And then and I just stood my ground and kept smiling. I'm, so a young 19, 20-year-old with a camera, which doesn't happen often in Stockport Market. So I think he just sort of looked away in a sort of slightly self-conscious way. Yeah.
It definitely
He's
has
really
that feel of the old markets. Because I remember when I was a young 14-year-old helping my aunt
Yeah,
with the shoe store market. So
yeah,
yeah, it definitely has that feel.
yeah. This is Jessie Clark. And
Uh-huh.
she I didn't know who she was. I have several pictures of her, winter and summer, but this is the portrait. I just love her body language. It's in the outfits. I mean, the layers they had to wear in the wintertime. And it was after the images went into the Guardian, about 6 months after I found them, that her granddaughter wrote to me. And she said, and she was really lovely. She said, "This is my nan, Jessie Clark, on the greengrocer's stall. She was running the stall until well into her 80s. It brings back many memories of what an awesome woman she was." She
Oh,
looks pretty awesome. Yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
lovely.
Yep.
Did
Yeah.
any of them actually buy the pictures or the books because of, the personal touch that had of their relatives working in that market?
Sorry,
Did some of them buy the books and the photos because of the personal?
whenever somebody wrote to me, whether it was on social media or on after the Guardian article or whatever, I sent them a print of the person they gave me information about, usually a relative or a friend
Yeah.
or themselves. There's pictures in there that are of people themselves. And this book first came out, the first edition came out about what was it, July 2021. It sold out within 9 months, 1,000 copies, and the second edition is now selling. Yeah,
That's
it's
amazing.
it's available even in the Photographers Gallery in London,
That's
which
fun.
feels like a really nice,
It-
that's
Yeah.
very nice.
It's a real nice touch. Damon, do you want to
Yeah.
say?
Yeah. Were the pictures taken over different periods, or was it all one period of time?
It was just during the winter, mostly the winter of 1976 and 1977. There was one visit in the warmer months,
Mhm.
and I think that was, I'm not sure if that was the warmer months of 76 or 77.
Yeah.
I think it was 76, but I'm not absolutely sure.
Yeah.
So that's why I've hedged my bets in the title 1976 to 1977, because
Yeah.
it does go through more than one season, but there's just 3 weekends. because
Right.
that's when I visited.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm. All right.
yeah.
Mhm.
I love
Right. Well,
I love the fact
sorry.
you captured the vegetables and like potatoes and everything, which is like traditionally grown in gardens in Britain.
Yeah, definitely. The market was full of them, and it still is. Some of these stalls are still going. Yep.
And I
Yeah.
also love the fact that you've captured the style of the fashion of the clothes then with the coat thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's pretty distinctive.
Yes.
Anyway, go. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Did you say the market was still going to this day?
Yeah, part of it's still going. It's not nearly as big as it was
Yeah.
because our shopping habits have changed.
Yep.
There's a beautiful glass covered section in Stockport Market, and it's very much that's very much alive. And they've introduced a few additional activities, like they have what they call Foodie Friday, and they have all these street food vans everywhere, every food that you can imagine.
They have.
And yeah, they have a lot of music stuff. What's most inspiring about Stockport now is this new generation of Stockport residents. Some of them are incomers, some of them are sort of second, third generation from the lot that I photographed.
Yep.
And there's a very lively young community. And when I was there for the sort of book launch for the first edition, there was some youngsters being in their 20s coming to get a book, saying, this is what we need. This is what Stockport needs. We're here to make Stockport as important as it was in the 1970s. And it's a very creative community. It's a lot of artwork stuff. And then right in the middle of the square where I took these pictures, there's a place called Staircase House, which is part of the Stockport Museum. And they have different levels of floors of different eras of the area. And one whole floor, there's 40 plus of my pictures. These pictures are there on in a permanent basis.
Yeah.
So it's really right there, and people who are visiting can see that they can see the market as it is now and what's going on now, and then they can go in the museum right there and go and see what it was like, and the school kids and everybody can go and see what it was like 50 years ago.
That's great that they can do that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a real honor.
That is a true honor. Yeah.
It is. It really is. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, any photographer to have a permanent collection in any museum, it's what more could you want, right?
But you also captured history of a place.
Yeah, it's a social document. And it's one of the reasons why when my first degree, when I went to visit this market, was in sociology. And I've always been really aware of traveling a lot and stuff about different cultures and stuff, and being curious about different cultures and languages and ways of life. And I was very conscious when I first saw them and realized what I had and the reactions of people, which make this book is full of descriptions and memories and names, which makes these photographs sort of come alive. And there's a social document level to it all, which meant that during one of the things when I raised funds for the first edition of my Kickstarter, I was really keen to raise enough to get extra books to donate to the local libraries and schools. And that was a real treat to do that too. Yeah. Yeah, they use them for memory work with older folk and for youngsters. And I can tell you a very, very funny story. When I was down for the exhibition in April, May of 2022, right in Stockport there, right next to the market, this solo exhibition we ran for 10 days, which was really busy every day. There was an older man who was a historian who'd been in touch with me after the Guardian article, and then came to the exhibition. He lived nearby. And on the same day that he came to visit, and we sat and chatted. A high school teacher brought his whole class. So the place was full of high school students, local high school students, and this older guy who just retired from his professorship at anyway, he wrote to me later and said on the train home, he happened to be sharing a carriage with some of these high school kids, and he overheard them talking about the fact that the pictures were mostly black and white. And one of the kids said, but that's what it was like in those days. It was all black and white.
As if they meant real life as well.
Yeah. I mean, we did actually have about 8, I know, we had about 8 of the color slides printed up in the exhibition as well. So
Really nice. It's really flattering that, do you know what I mean? That you've got people from all different generations seeing these photos.
yeah, I've put him in, not because I've ever found out his name, but because he was at a stall outside the pet shop. And when the Guardian printed the article, he was like the headline act, if you like, the poster boy. And he's got a really strong sort of look to him. And I never found out his name, but the pet shop was a really big deal to a lot of the people who wrote on social media platforms and to me, because the pet shop to visit, in those days they had some puppies and kittens and inappropriately, to some degree, animals in these pet stores. And the treat for kids to be patiently dragged around all the stalls by mum was to go to the pet shop and see the puppies or the kittens. So they all mentioned this as a memory from those days.
Oh,
Which I
that's
thought was
really
great.
lovely. They've had some
Yeah.
lovely memories actually seeing those pets.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
That was a highlight. That was
Yeah,
a
that was
highlight
the
for the
highlight.
children.
That was the
Yeah.
highlight for the wee ones. Yep, it was. Yeah.
And again,
Yeah.
I love the strength of how you've captured this gentleman really looking at you, like he's really looking at you.
I know. I think in those days, people have asked me, what was it like taking pictures in those days? And I find myself so saying, well, it wasn't really any different from now, but you could get away with a little bit more because people didn't know how to react to you. So you could just go and snap the picture and move on before they kind of twigged that there was somebody there with a camera. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
it was, and I've never had any hesitation. I mean, some people would object to poking my camera in straight into somebody's face. If they're going to object, they'll object. And obviously, in other cultures, there's some cultures around the world, like Morocco, where they can be much more sensitive.
Yeah.
But in India, they're posing all over the place. So you just have to play it by ear.
Yeah.
I thought when I was looking through the portfolio on your website of the Stockport photos, I thought how the vast majority of them, the people were smiling and they all seemed happy to be in the pictures.
Yeah.
And I know, like as you said, there wasn't back then. There wasn't as many people with cameras, whereas nowadays there's so many people doing photography with cameras, but everybody's got a mobile phone with a camera as well, and they're everywhere. But I thought it was real interesting how everybody seemed.
It was
very open.
It was very open, and also they were, the energy, Damon, in the market was very positive. They're working hard, but like you see in most markets, in most towns, even now, right? In an open market, there's this energy and there's this liveliness, there's this sense of face-to-face contact. And people selling their stuff and you're trying to get a bargain, and it's just the same. It was the same then. So the atmosphere was very busy. They were focused, but they were also there to see each other and to have a gossip and to see what's new. And on that particular day, I was new in passing for some of them, So yeah.
I think in the old days as well is that people were busy selling, because I remember as a kid that talking about all the sales that we had for the shoes.
Yes.
But I think Like now, like if you go to one of the markets in the East End, people get quite offended if you try and get photos.
I think it's a bit trickier now because, and I tend to be a bit more hesitant with market traders now because I feel like they're kind of, it's a bit unfair. It's a bit like shooting fish in a bowl. You're they're kind of trapped in their workplace. They don't have a choice about being there. And I think it can feel intrusive, and you can feel like you can probably maybe feel like, an animal in a zoo or something, like they're just trying to do their job. So I think it's a bit trickier now. It was probably easier in those days. Yeah.
But it's a shame in some ways because you capture a point of time that may not exist ever again.
Yes, it is a shame, but you can say that about everything that we're doing these days. I think what's interesting about this time is that there's only a handful of photographers that were taking pictures of the more working class communities and their activities and their workplaces and just the everyday stuff in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. There wasn't a lot of real documentary photography going around doing this sort of work, thinking it was relevant to document. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No, it does totally, yeah.
So it's considered, people are more aware of it now, I think, than they were then, and especially in certain parts of the community weren't so apparently seen to be photogenic or worth photographing or just an everyday activity. Why would you take a whole bunch of pictures of it? Yeah, I think that was the attitude. Oh, right. Okay, this is an interesting story. This is Mr. Huck, spelled H-A-Q. And he features in a few of my photographs because he was obviously quite a poser. Those are all jumpers and things. When he went into The Guardian, I named him according to all the information I got from several different sources. As an ex-social worker writing reports, I'd learned, and before that I was doing research at university, you only distribute facts, hard facts that you have several sources for, okay? So I had all these sources that this is Mr. Ahmed. So he went into The Guardian as Mr. Ahmed.
Did he get in touch with the Guardian to correct them?
No, I didn't in the end. No, I didn't, because I'll tell you what, because when the Guardian article came out, my email box kind of blew up. And one of the emails I got was a really lovely, gracious email from one of his sons who said, "This is not Mr. Ahmed, this is Mr. Huck, our dad, who died a few years ago, and we were amazed to see him in The Guardian of all places." He worked for Mr. Ahmed. He worked in Ahmed's store, so locals might have thought he was Mr. Ahmed. Being dark-skinned, there was a lot of Black, dark-skinned Asian people in the community. It's a much more colorful community than Edinburgh, for example.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he was Ahmed, Mr. Ahmed. So I was absolutely mortified, but they were so kind and so gracious and so sweet. And one of them, I think it was just the one brother, or was it two brothers, two sons of Mr. Huck, came to the preview of the exhibition. And again, they were so gracious and so kind. They were delighted that he'd found fame and fortune, even if it was under the wrong name. And then on one of the days of the exhibition, Mr. Ahmed came. Mr. Ahmed appeared. His son had heard about this, and he turned up, and he said, "Yes, Mr. Huck used to work for me." So it was just fantastic. It was really lovely. Of course, I fell over myself doing corrections on all my social media and apologizing and everything. So he is actually Mr. Huck. And one of the funny things that was there was women who wrote in and said, "We worked for this guy as teenagers." And one of the people wrote, I had a weekend job working for this chap selling ladies' jumpers and cardigans. I remember he used to put the price up if he thought the customer looked like they had some money. And when I mentioned this to his son, Riaz, he just laughed, said, yep, that would be him. And Irene writes in and she says, Mr. Huck taught me how to fold jumpers. I always think of him when I'm packing.
Oh,
50 years later.
That's a great memory.
It is, except that when you look at this photograph, there's no evidence of any
Well,
folding.
yes.
no, it's a bit like a jumble sale, isn't it?
It is,
Yeah.
totally. Yep.
So Mr. Ahmed was ahead of his time with the dynamic pricing.
Yes, or at least he told his workers to be ahead of the time with the dynamics. I think, but listen, I think that's the market, right? There was guys up in the back of their lorries holding stuff up, saying, you know, what do you give me for this, and what will you give me for that, and it'll be 2 for this or 2 for that, and so it's great. That was Mr. Huck.
I loved it. I loved that woman's face.
I know.
Are they a couple? Are they strangers or are they a couple?
They're strangers. They're just in the store. And for a long time, I didn't find out their names. I signed up to 3 or 4 different Stockport memory Facebook pages so I could keep posting photographs and saying, does anybody know this? Anybody know that? And this guy, David, wrote and said, my dad used to supply the market stall with their tripe, elder, and black puddings.
Yeah.
He was originally a tripe dresser.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's people who talked about, well, the man in this elder stall is Harry Walker, JP, Justice of the Peace. His face, yeah. And he was a Labour alderman. Amazing, eh?
And been quite a well-known figure in the community.
Yeah, but look at his staring at me like, what do you think you're doing? And somebody else wrote, every Saturday we would go to the market with my dad to buy treats for tea, elder and tripe. We could choose whatever we liked, but we had to cook it ourselves. I was 10.
Oh, wow.
We ate it watching Doctor Who. Loved the cheese, not so much the elder.
And Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And did you know who the lady?
And no, I haven't heard who the lady was. Nope. Yeah.
Her glasses are very 70s.
Yeah, definitely. No, I'm just pleased with. I have to say, I impressed myself when I found some of these and thought, how did I know to take that picture with that sign in the middle of it when I was 19 years old? I mean, I was quite.
It's
a very popular one. Yeah.
It's beautiful image.
Your initial expectation is that they're a couple, and it's just, but it's amazing. It's great to hear the story behind it.
Yeah.
And also
have some background.
Yeah, and also the fact that the white pudding, because that's such a northern thing. Like I grew up in Hurn when I was really little, and we used to have white pudding and onions and potatoes, and it's such a northern thing to have.
Is that the same as tripe? Is it?
Not quite the same.
Similar. Yeah.
Not quite, no.
Yeah.
It's another strong character.
Yeah, she was the ribbon lady for ages. She's just the ribbon lady. And then when I was doing the I think it was when I was doing the book launch for the first edition, I took my book around the market, my first edition around the market, to show people in the market traders that are still there. And they went, wow, and they said, that stall's still going, and it's being run by her son.
Wow.
And so I went and found her son, and he's called Bob. And he's known as Bob Buttons. He's got a lot of buttons as well as ribbons.
Bob Buttons.
Bob Buttons, and he's still running the stall. And this is Elsie. He told me this is Elsie, his mother, Elsie Spencer.
Oh, wow.
So in the second edition, she's Elsie Spencer.
That's lovely.
Yeah, it's just so lovely that, they recognize each other, and they recognized her, and that must be that, and Bob's still here, and da 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 da. And yeah, you can imagine his face when I showed him the book. It was great fun.
I love
Yeah,
the
it
fact
was
that
really,
I love the fact that her son's still trading buttons as well.
I know, and apparently, and people will say, they never go anywhere else, and yeah, they come all the time, and it's a really classic kind of, whatever you're trying to match, you'll find it there. It's that kind of, and now I can't find the thing what he said, but she ran it into her 80s as well. There's something about this crowd of market traders that everybody seemed to keep going, and maybe it was being outside all weathers. But I think it was actually mostly the sense of community, the sense of purpose, the sense of just being together and having that sense of camaraderie all the time. They said they belonged to this community, they belonged to something, and it was very meaningful.
The market traders are almost a community within a community. They're their own small community within the wider community that they're serving.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And you answered one of the questions that I was thinking about when you were obviously listening to you talking about your experiences and the people.
Yeah.
It made me think, you couldn't help but wonder if there were still people going there, or still traders, or their families carried on, but you answered that they were, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, and Bob's not the only one. There's several. There are several there who are still running their stalls, or a guy who wrote to me, and he said his brother took over the family stall, so the brother is selling stuff in the fruit and veg, and he's doing something else, but yeah, they're still there.
So it's like a family generation thing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, they inherited the stall, and they went on it after. There was plenty of people who wrote to me and said, I worked in my uncle's or my father's or somebody's stall. I would help set up before I went to school, and then pedal home and pedal back, and then take it down, help take it down after, or do Saturdays, earn some pocket money on Saturdays by helping out. Yeah, they were all at it, from a very young age.
A real family affair.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of pride. There's a lot of pride in it. Yeah, definitely.
It takes, it's a skill set selling things.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And it's having the confidence as well to sell it. It's not just by standing in the store, it's actually knowing who to sell and what to show.
I think they were providing what people wanted and what people needed. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Necessities at the time.
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely. Now there's a generational one, okay? This is Keith Ridgway. In his little booth, and he's a gardener, and he sells flowers and vegetables. And I'd heard his name a few times on the social media posts, and I also heard about his father. So I was a bit confused as to who this guy was. And then his son Andrew actually wrote to me after the Guardian article and said, "This is my father, Keith Ridgway. And I often spent time on a Saturday with him on his plant stall. My dad, who is 85, this is Keith, always talks about market days, and we share some memories of those days gone by. He's still the character he always was, living his life on a farm in Anglesey." So he retired to Anglesey. And somebody else had written in to say, the senior Mr. Ridgway, Eric. So there's Eric, and this is Keith, and there's Andrew. So this is 3 generations of people. This other guy who used to buy Christmas trees from his dad. So they just keep going and going. Yeah, his name came up a lot. He was a very popular figure amongst a lot of people with memories about the plant stall. There's a lovely color one of him, which is not in the book, but it's on my website, which is very popular as well. Yeah. He's lovely. When he died last year, I asked him and his son Andrew to come to the private preview, and they couldn't make it. He was too frail. So I sent them a copy of the book and obviously photographs, prints. And then last year, Andrew wrote to me very sweetly to tell me that Keith had died.
Oh.
And he wrote to me within days of the event, like it was
So
really
you know.
important. Yeah, I mean, I haven't met either of them, you know, and yet they're writing to me to let me know. And it felt like a real personal loss, you know, like
Yeah.
it was extraordinary how they sort of, yeah, got
You know
I felt like I got to know them.
what's really wonderful about this as well is the fact that they've got a photo.
Yes,
Oh, really?
yeah. I sent everybody who wrote to me about whose family members especially, or was themselves, they all got prints. I just think it's just a really important, really important. Yeah.
I think it's one thing to see the picture, but to give them a print is a different thing as well. It's almost makes the memory more tangible when they can hold that and see that themselves.
And it's also to underscore, for me, is to underscore the fact that this is an image of them just going about their ordinary everyday activity. This is not a pose school photo or a party pose, or this is just an ordinary everyday. This is how to remember them in their everyday situations. And most people commented on that.
Yeah.
That it was this ordinariness of the photographer, of the content that was so meaningful.
And it also expresses the personality, really, because what they're selling and how they dress and who they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that real moment in time?
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing that Andrew wrote to me, which was again really sweet and very kind, really. I mean, in the middle of his own loss and grief, he's writing to me saying that his dad could get quite sad about being infirm and immobile towards the end. He was wheelchair bound and was a bit restricted in his movements around his farm. And the one way they could cheer him up was to talk about the market. And the photographs really helped to cheer him up and to remind him of good times. And that's another thing that photography can do. You know?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's
I love the way you've got the shadows and the lights and the brush.
I know.
Which is going to be brilliant, and the chitter-chatting away.
I know. Oh, the gossip. They're checking out the latest trends in a magazine, I reckon. Yeah. This is a very popular one. I've sold this print several times. This print has gone around the world, I tell you. One of the things that came up in the social media post about this one was this comment from a woman called "Over the Shoulder Boulder Holders." And when I mentioned this to the book designer, who's from Stockport, he said, "Yeah, we got to put that in." I said, "You sure it's not offensive?" But over the shoulder boulder holders, that was brilliant, perfect. Yeah. And you don't see this in market stalls in Britain anymore, bras hanging up like that.
You don't know.
Yeah.
You'll be embarrassed now.
Yeah. So it's Anne Olson Star. It took a while to find the name of Anne. I think she's the one in the furry hat. The height of fashion at the time.
Yeah, it was. Very
needs
ABBA.
must in the winter.
Yeah. This guy's name came up after the Guardian article because he wrote to me and said, "My friend sent me this, and I think it's me. And I'm selling foam. I had a Saturday job at my uncle's foam rubber stall just off after the bridge over Underbank. There's a place a bit like we have South Bridge, and then we have the Cowgate underneath. It's a similar geography there. And I can attest to the great sense of community amongst the traders and shoppers. On the coppice stone behind me, you can see the groove that was caused by myself and my uncle sharpening the knives to cut the foam.
Yeah, I can see that on the
Yeah, you can see
left-hand
just
side.
to the left
His
there,
right-hand
yeah.
side. Yeah.
There's no health and safety in those days. You just got the knives out, sharpened them on the bridge, and cut the foam.
That's unbelievable.
Yep. And then his friend who spotted the image in the first place wrote to me and said, I need a print of this because we're going to visit this guy, Stephen, where he's retired in Portugal. And I want to take him a print as a present for his 50th, 60th birthday, 50, I don't know what his birthday would have
Yeah.
been. Would have been his 60th, I guess. And they said, okay. And so I got him a print, they got it framed, they took it to him. Then they sent me a snapshot of the two of them standing in front, these old guys standing in front of that print on the wall in Portugal. And then when I had the exhibition up in Stockport, this guy came to Stockport from Portugal to meet up with me.
That's,
Oh, that's
that's
amazing.
It just all the way
Yeah.
around.
That is totally
So
awesome.
it's really wonderful. He also says about his hair, he said, what was I thinking? Remember the fashion of
but then that would have been the fashion, yeah. I wonder
Yeah.
what he was reading. I
Oh,
wonder.
probably page 3, I reckon.
Uh,
Oh, dear me.
Yeah, it was great. But that they must have filled in that stone because that bit is not, you can't see the, I've been on that
When you
bridge
go-
many times since, and it's not, those marks aren't
Yeah.
there anymore. Yeah.
they've done a wee repair.
Yeah, they have. Yeah. Anyway, that's him on the foam stall. Yep. Okay. What
Right.
about 10? Number 10.
Number 10.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
That's a busy scene.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I love
Okay.
these. I love these with a busy lady.
I know this is another popular one. This one actually, you know how, maybe, yeah, if you shoot film, you'll know that you can shoot a few frames on a roll of film. I used to as a poor student, and then it got put away and it got dug out and shot on something else. Okay, so I hadn't come across this image when we were designing the book, and and then I found it in a box of family negatives, and it was part of like just 3 frames from Stockport in the beginning of this roll. The rest was all family. Okay, my sisters or something.
Uh-huh.
So I thought, oh my God, I love this. So I got in touch with the designer. We were like 2 weeks off going to press, print, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the book was designed, it was done, kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And I said, you'll never guess what I found. He said, oh my God, we got to get this one in. But he's very strict book designer. He's got his parameters, right? So by this time he had convinced me to engage to get in touch with Paul Morley, the journalist, who was also from Stockport. And he was writing a foreword for the book, which is just beautiful. It's absolutely brilliant. And so I said, the designer said we could just maybe fit it in to that section of the book, the forward section, rather than the main body, because all the pages, when you print a book, you have to juggle the pages in pairs and fours, right? Because you can't go from just on one extra page. You have to think in terms of 2 or 4,
Yeah.
right? So it was going to be
Can't interrupt the sequence and you'd already set up.
Exactly. It gets complicated. And the printers are already set up for a certain number of pages and blah, blah, blah. So I sent this image to Paul Morley, the guy who was writing the foreword. And I said, well, I want to get this one in. And he said, absolutely. And the reason I really wanted to get it in was because when we had a 3-way Zoom, the book was all designed during the second lockdown. Everything online. Everything was done by Zoom and online. And we had a 3-way Zoom between myself, the book designer, Rob Shaw, who is an absolute star, and Paul Morley. And the 2 guys who are, I think, ages with each other, they have very aligned memories of being in Stockport at this time as teenagers, desperate to get out, desperate to get out. And one of the most exciting parts of Stockport at this point was the Mersey Way shopping precinct, which had not long been completed. It was not old market stalls, it was modern shops like Dixon's with cameras and hi-fis and escalators and a bandstand and everything. And the teenagers loved to go and hang out on Saturdays, right? And this was the most exciting place to be. And they were talking about this generation divide that they had as teenagers in Stockport, compared to their parents' generation and their grandparents. So here we are, we have these teenagers behind gossiping away, and the three ladies with their handbags, like guns on their laps or something.
Yeah.
I just thought it just summed up their conversation. So for it to go in the forward felt really appropriate. When you read Paul Morley's forward, this really fits with what he writes. That it was the crossover of the old market and the new modern way of shopping,
changing of the guard.
The changing of the guard, thank you, yes. And then just last September, because occasionally I post a picture and any memories, any names, whatever, because the social media sites that are about Stockport increase their membership. And I sometimes post a picture and say, "Is anybody new members know anybody here or remember anything about this?" And the name came up. So the woman on the far left is Auntie Mildred getting a break from Uncle Wilfred, which I just thought was yeah. Another
You can see it on her face as well.
you can, can't you? Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. I think that was my husband who suggested the title for this should be Handbags at Dawn.
Yeah. They've all, and their shopping bags, they've all got everything.
Yeah. They're brilliant.
I wonder if all of them are getting a praise from the husband. It's just the facial expression hilarious. But I love the fact you've got Dixon.
I know, they are classic.
I don't know if this Dixon, does it still exist now, or is that gone?
I can't remember.
I'm not sure. It might. I think
even the pairing on the far left behind Mildred, where you get the guy in the suit walking by, and then there's the guy in the suit in the window. How did I frame these things? Just in passing.
Yeah,
amazing.
And I love the fact you've got the little girl in the background as well, talking to her mummy.
Yeah.
There's just so much going on.
Yeah. It's funny because I don't do street photography much like this anymore. I think, Anyway, yes, yeah. And I've called this Fags and Sweets because you can see cigarettes.
See the cigarette.
As well as the sweets. Now, I didn't know the names of these people for ages and ages, even though I kept posting it. And there was clearly a sort of parent-child relationship going on there. And then finally, just before we went to press for the second edition, somebody knew somebody who might know Ruth,
who they were.
Yeah, who they were. And I got their names just in time, and a quote from the little girl who's now a mother herself.
Oh, wow.
To go into the second edition. Wow. Okay, I was just so wonderful. And she wrote, this picture is of myself, Ruth, aged 11, and my mum, also Ruth. Mum and Dad had 8 children who all enjoyed taking turns to going to work with Mum at the sweet shop in Stockport Market. There's 8 kids, right? Mum worked part-time on Fridays and Saturdays. At the end of a shift, she would allow us to choose 2 ounces of sweets as payment for helping. Popular purchases at the time were pick and mix, candy cigarettes, cola cubes, aniseed twists, and sherbet dips. You remembering this stuff, Damon?
I am, yeah, because I'm probably
I remember it too.
Sadly, Mom and Dad passed away within 3 months of each other in 2015, leaving behind a wonderful legacy of love and laughter. And I found her just in time. We met for the first time at Stockport Museum just after the book signing for the 2nd edition. And it was almost a tearful kind of meeting because it was so meaningful to her and her 7 siblings to have this image of their mom at the stall in the market.
That's amazing.
It's just lovely.
That is lovely.
It is, yeah. I was so glad to meet her because she's not, although she's on social media, she's not there a lot. So it was, you know, she told me that she came home and her email box was full of all these messages from people. Ruth, you're on social media.
Yeah, friends and family letting her know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
This definitely reminds me of my childhood, though, of getting the half-penny and 1-penny sweets.
Yeah.
And everything was 10p in total. Mix.
Yeah.
Yeah, going to the sweet shop for the quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Edinburgh, you'd go for a quarter, and it'd be I don't know if that must have been a quarter of an ounce or something, and you get your cola cubes or up your sewer plumes. But
believe it or not, my hometown, we still have these kind of sweet shops still going on. So my kids support sweets from shops like this.
Yeah.
And there's still a couple of sweet stalls in the market now with these very similar layouts.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
The old traditional boiled sweets that are always been there.
Damon, I'm looking at the faces, not what they're selling. Sorry. Sorry.
I might have a vested interest in the sweets.
Yeah.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's a lovely photo. And to see the cigarettes as well. You don't see that much.
No. It was a really precious thing to meet Ruth, young Ruth. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Anyway, number 12.
You're doing well, David.
This is.
We're going to be running out. Listen, we're going to be running out in a minute, so we might have to. There's a few more questions to finish off, and then.
Yeah, absolutely. That's okay. Do you want me to wait and speak on this in the next segment?
You can speak on. We're right. We've got 9 minutes.
Okay, fine. I've just thrown this one in, guys. I have no idea who these people are because it's possibly my favorite of the whole bunch because there's a universality to it. When we did the exhibition, we did it in a great big huge converted coffee warehouse. The person who owned it said, "You've got to have your exhibition here. We're going to turn it into an exhibition space." And big high ceilings and beams. And there was a curator who designed banners. You can see behind me, there's a banner, and this is this photograph. And it's covering a bunch of shelves. We had beams with 6 banners. They're the size of a door, hanging down of 6 different images from the Stockport collection. And they were hung in a way that you walked between them as if you were walking through the market. It was absolutely genius. It was so evocative. It was just wonderful. So that's why I've put this in. And I just love the way I framed it with the fabric from the stall folding down on the side of the baby and caught. There's another one of this, because obviously you taking more than one. There's another one, and the baby's not looking at me, but this one I caught her or him looking at me. And it's just a classic. It could be in any market, right? It's just, I just love it.
It's timeless, and it as you say, it could be any market. It doesn't have a strong sense of place.
No, it's
If
a
you know what I mean. It's
universal.
like you say, it's universal.
Yeah,
It's universal is probably
yeah.
the best way to
Yeah,
say that.
it's the mother who has to take her child to work, you
Yeah.
know? Yep. Yeah, and there was another the sock stall in front of the big cooling tower, and she wrote to me, but this was her parents' stall, and she was a baby at the time, and she said, I grew up under the stall.
Oh, wow.
So she was taken, so she would have been under the stall somewhere. It was very common. Yeah. Yep. Anyway.
You can also see the fashion again with the lady with her, her hood thing, her scarf.
Yeah.
That's quite a sign of those times.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, definitely.
And the hat of the baby.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cold. Yep. Anyway, number 13.
I've got 13 and then we finished the photos.
Yeah.
Right. There we go. This is another great, big, massive scene. A big wide scene.
I know. And this is what a real favorite. I took several of her, and this is the one that we put in the book. And even though I have tried through The Guardian, through BBC interviews, through social media, through everywhere I could think of, the Daily Mail, whoever interviewed me, I always said, I want to know who this girl is. And I finally found out who she is in January just past.
Oh wow.
Oh,
But she's decided to be private. So that's as far as the information goes. But it's just really lovely for me to know who she is. Because I love her attitude. I just love her attitude. And yeah. And I love what's going on in this picture. There's the boy, this little kid in the background having an argument with his dad. It looks like there's somebody tying a child's shoelace on the left.
Yeah.
And I like the pairing of the black shoes on the left and then the right, framing the girl and the guy with both of their folded arms sitting there. And the school kids in the background. It's just all going on. Yeah, I'm really.
And is that in the new shopping centre
That's
as
in
well?
the Mersey precinct. It's a big important precinct in those days. Yeah, you'll have seen on my website. There's pictures of the bandstand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lovely, lovely place.
Is that where the bandstand was in the shopping parade?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is the shopping precinct still there?
Oh yeah, but it hasn't got the same energy.
Yeah.
It definitely hasn't got the same energy. It's a bit soulless, like some of these 1960s, 70s places are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're trying to do stuff with it, but I'm not sure. I mean,
it's like you said, there's lots of these places throughout the country that have all kind of suffered the same fate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's not so many shops. They're not the centre of the community again,
I think what I find sad is because I come from the Midlands. I originally come from the middle of nowhere, and the area that I come from, literally the shop, the high street's just dying. There's literally half of it looks like a ghost town now. It looks derelict.
Yeah.
And the shopping centres you do see, which are new, are now like moved outside the town, like further to suburbia areas. So just really sad to see what doesn't exist anymore, really.
No, but it changed. The one thing that's constant, Gladys, is change.
Yeah.
And our shopping habits change, and we want everything delivered to our door, or we want to go to a big shopping center with our cars. And it's kind of, I know that some people in Stockport blame the council for letting the market sort of die down. There was some redevelopment issues and budgeting issues and funding problems, and private developer came in to resurrect the old glass buildings. So because the council didn't have the funds to do it, and the rates went up, and so some of the traders couldn't pay the rates, so they had to leave. And so there was a lot of, like we do in Edinburgh, we blame the council for everything.
Yeah.
But I think it's not always one aspect. There's our own shopping habits change.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because I think that's the kind of thing that comes out when people discuss things like that, and then the journalist or whoever asks the question, when was the last time you shopped here?
Yeah.
And it's and then it's all kind of self-explanatory after that.
It is,
because
you're right.
it's not just that one person, it's the whole normal, or what would have been the actual clientele at the time. Everybody's moved away to different habits.
Yeah, absolutely.
I suppose a lot of the big supermarkets have taken over a lot of where you buy food. I remember as a kid, I used to love, when you used to go to the fish market and you used to have the little plates with the mussels and the cockles, and as a kid, my poor mum would catch me in the corner eating some mussels or some cockles, and then I had to say, how much do I have to pay, love? Because I was only like 3 or 4 at the time, but my mum's like, oh no, she's just eating away. But it's something I remember as a kid absolutely loving, having that, and now you don't have that anymore, do you?
The other thing I should say about kids in the market, I have a lot of photographs, as you probably saw on the website, of different kids. And I remember, as an ex-social worker, child protection social worker, I've always had a kind of radar about kids. And when I saw these old photographs, I realized that there was a lot of kids that were just wandering around, quite young, apparently unsupervised. And it was safe to do that. It was kind of like everybody was looking after their kids. The kids, we assumed they were. Maybe there wasn't. Maybe there was some miscreants in the neighborhood. There probably were. But anyway, there was a kind of confidence and sense of place for the kids. They knew where they were, and they knew that it was their granddad's stall or their mom's stall or whatever, or they were there like she was with whoever that guy was. Maybe it was her dad. I don't know, but just, they were part of the scene, and they were enjoying, like you say, Gladys, enjoying whatever they could get their little hands on. So yeah,
I think kids had more freedom then, because I had more freedom compared to my kids.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kids play and do whatever. Now everyone's get frightened by anything the kid does.
Yeah. There's a bit too much of that. Yep.
Right, we'll
go for it.
So how did you go about into making it into a photo book? What was the process you went about, and how did you get approached to do a photo book?
When it went into the Guardian. I mean, there was a lot of mention during the social media stuff, and especially when it went in the Guardian, where's the book? Where's the book? But one of the emails I got approached by a publisher or whatever, and I wasn't impressed with their email. Being a social worker for over 20 years, you get very good at being suspicious. Anyway, I got this lovely email from this very charming guy who mainly sold himself. He comes from Stockport, lives down in the south, and loved the work, and is a photo book designer.
Oh, wow.
And he convinced me that he wanted to do this book. It needed to be a book. They needed to be in a book. So we exchanged emails, and I just thought, okay, this is the guy I can trust. And we worked incredibly well together over the next few months. And yeah, it was great. We had a really good partnership, all by email. We met for the first time when we met on press at the printers in Doncaster. And it was still only June, I think, and there was still this sort of element of lockdown stuff. And yeah, it was tricky, but we managed it. And it was him that convinced me that Paul Morley should be approached to do the foreword. It was a brilliant partnership. I can't tell you. The whole thing was all about serendipity and collaboration and luck. From the beginning, from the first time I showed them to a friend here in Edinburgh who lived in that area, and said these should go on social media, all the way through to the getting into the Guardian, and all along the way just having a sense of I've got nothing to lose by saying yes to things all the time, and thinking, okay, I'll figure this out afterwards, So when it came to finding the money for the book itself, I tried to raise funds, but unsuccessful that way. And I went on Kickstarter. I did a Kickstarter, and I will never, ever do a Kickstarter again. It is the most exhausting thing. I'd rather give birth again. It was the most exhausting thing ever, honestly, because you have to spend that 28 days constantly watching the graph, the money, right? Constantly promote. First, you have to design the whole Kickstarter with the video and the rewards and and then you have to beg all your friends and family to please, and then you have to promote yourself. You have to promote yourself. This self-promotion for 28 days solidly. And
put yourself out there.
Oh, it's just the pits, and the graph goes up for the the pre-orders, and then it levels off. You think, oh, I've still got 2,000 to go. Oh, no, what can I? And then so you'll see that frantic hysteria on my Instagram further down on that part of it, the different stages of the money and and I'll never forget the day we hit the target. And I was supposed to go and do a photo shoot for my husband's business somewhere. And it honestly, I'm amazed I got anything. I could hardly operate my camera. I was completely like distracted by the fact that we just scored that money. And a few days later, we made another 1,000 or so I could print a few more books for the schools and stuff. It was the Guardian article and Robert Shaw Design. He's an absolute star. Coming from that area, Stockport, he had that dry sense of humor. He had a brilliant bedside manner, and I would freak out about something, and he would just send me an email or make some quip or something, and I'd be in hysterics, like, okay, we can keep going here. He was very respectful as well. There were certain things I had very clear ideas about, and other things that he had clear ideas about. And I think we were really respectful of each other. I really respected his taste. It was his idea, for example, to go with this brick orange cover color, because this is Stockport brick. It's not Manchester brick. It's not Edinburgh brick. It's Stockport brick. And he says it'll show up on the library shelves. He says, yeah, right enough. And it was his idea to have the sequence of photographs interspersed with these pages. I'm sorry, it's back for you guys, but it's the signage, the bargain signs. Everything on sale here today, far less than cost price. And there's several of these red pages interspersed, and it interrupts the flow as you're going through the book. And for me, that makes it an immersive experience. It's like being in the market where you're just going along and suddenly somebody's shouting at you about something they're selling, or somebody's shouting at you about something else. It's just, I just think the way he's done it, everything he's done in here is just, he had a really good, respectful sense of how much space photographs needed. They just need their own page. Some people want to just cram it all in. And he got a bit annoyed with me. Not annoyed, but Rob. Anyway, the acknowledgements page, I think, was too long as far as he was concerned. But too bad. You have to put it all in because there's so many people.
There's so many people to thank.
There's so many people to thank. I can't tell you. Collaboration from start to finish, all the way. And it's the people writing to me right from the start with their memories and their names and their contributions. And even when I was interviewed on sort of BBC, and then they would write to me and say, I saw you on the BBC, or the Guardian editor forwarded on messages that had been written into the Guardian that were meant for me. And so there was this constant kind of people wanting to help, people wanting to take part, people wanting to contribute. So it's just, lovely, right from the start, right to the end. Yeah. So that's how it got to be a book.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
That is brilliant. That's amazing.
Aye.
Has it been the feedback you've got from the people when you? How did you start? Did you start posting individual images on
Yes.
social media?
On Instagram, on
Uh-huh.
on Instagram, and it started to build up. And then I wondered about, because people saying people would come up with names. I found somebody doing something called the British Cultural Archive. So I messaged them or him with a couple of images. So does this interest you? Because I noticed on their Instagram feed that they had this old stuff. And he right away responded, and then they did, because they're much bigger following. Then he posted stuff and did a
snowball effect.
Yeah, an interview for a blog thing interview. So that kind of increased it. But it was, the real thing was the Guardian. I think that was the really, and then also finding more Stockport sites on Facebook, Stockport Memories, Families of Stockport, Memories of Stockport, you know, those different sites of people, and they're worldwide, right? But when it went into the Guardian, it kind of went.
And did the Guardian approach you? Did they see?
No. This is a key message for any photographers. The reason it went into the Guardian was only because during lockdown, when I went online for everything, I got hooked into a bunch of people called the Raw Society.
Okay?
All right. Look them up, the Raw Society on Instagram. A young couple who started this community. They've been doing location workshops in exotic places like Nepal and Cuba and stuff. But they went online with all their information, their workshops and stuff. And I found them. They were great. And they really hooked onto these images and were really, really supportive and really encouraging over and over and over again. I kept thinking, you know, what's the big deal? And they're the ones that said, you've got to get these into the Guardian. Guardian, you got to be kidding. My dad is a famous photographer. He did it in the Guardian. Anyway, but they said, no, you have to put them to the Guardian. So I wrote I think one of the picture editors, I can't remember, nothing. So I wrote, and Christelle, the Raw Society founder, said, do it more than once. They have stuff coming in all the time. This is in the autumn of 2020. Okay, so the tail end of lockdown stuff. And I mean, the world was a weird place at the time. So I wrote again, nothing. So I said, Christelle, they're not interested. And Christelle pointed out, because she's a much more experienced photographer, they have stuff coming across their desks in their email boxes all the time, hundreds. You have to keep going. You have to persist. So I did it. I thought, okay, and I was kind of, I still had a huge level of imposter syndrome about it all. And I thought, what would I do with, if the Guardian responded? How could I handle this? I wasn't sure about it. So I did it in a half-hearted way a third time. And by that time they responded. Hello. Have you got any decent resolution sizes of these images? Yeah, I was absolutely floored. Absolutely floored.
At that point, how many had you rediscovered when you searched through your negatives or your photos? Did you actually have prints of a lot of these pictures already, or was
no? It was all just scanned on the scanner. Did I have any prints? I don't think so. There was some contact sheets. I'd scanned, if they were all I just digitized them on this home scanner. When it came to doing it for the book, they all went and got scanned at the local lab, the professional lab in Edinburgh. So yeah, I think I had edited about, I don't know, 60 of them by that time, maybe less, so maybe about 40, because one of the things that came up when Rob was designing the book, and I sent him all the ones that I thought were very good, he kept saying, what about this one? What about that one? I said, I don't know about that one. Oh. And he was the one that kept wanting to put this one in and that one in and the next one in. And yeah, he was much more enthusiastic about some of them than I was.
I think sometimes that's the way. You need
Yes.
other people can
Yeah.
see things in some that
Yeah.
you don't yourself if you've taken it, and you may have more attachment to certain ones.
Yeah.
And you might be,
Absolutely.
they're not, and maybe in Rob's case, maybe he's not picking up on ones that you're really keen on, and you're thinking, why
Yeah.
is he not liking this one? Why do you want this?
Well, we had a bit of a debate about the girl with the folded arms. There's another one of her sitting, and she's just herself, but she's sitting in a way that is in our current. I was gonna send you that image as well, but I was just getting to a bit too much of a debate about the sexualization of children in photography these days. And the way she's sitting, and she's got a skirt on, she's sort of sitting forward, and she's sitting in a quite of, you know, come and get me kind of way, an almost Lolita way. Does that make sense? And I just love the power of this image. And he was like, no, we can't put this in. It doesn't flow with the rest of them.
Yeah, with the rest of the book.
It doesn't flow. We'll put this one in because she's part of a bigger context, you know, her sitting in the chair with the folded arms. But it's been an interesting one to put up on other photography sites to provoke a debate about how, you know, even if this child in this chair sitting like this, with this body language, if it was a boy with trousers on, no comment, but it's a little girl with a skirt on, and it becomes tricky, you know, and it's just the way our culture works. So it's interesting how it works for photography that way. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a shame in some ways, isn't it? That our culture's
Yeah.
that way, really.
It is. But that's what I love about being an old lady photographer, is you can take pictures of anybody. You're not considered a threat.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Actually. I never thought of that actually.
Yeah.
Until you just said that.
Yeah.
And that's not really fair on men, really, in that aspect.
It's not, but it's just the way our culture works, eh?
It is, and
Yeah.
I think in some respects you have to be aware of that as well, and
Yeah.
you work within it because you know how society works, and you know, even if everything was completely innocent, you know how society in general works, and it's just for a lot of it, it's just not worth the hassle.
It was not just not worth the hassle. We have to think about our fellow photographers and not giving us all a bad reputation by behaving badly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. I was thinking of what you were saying before, Gladys, about the photographs, and you don't see much of those kind of photographs.
No.
But I would say that Robert Blomfeld, the medical
I love his
student.
work. Yeah.
And what was he doing? He was doing that in the 60s in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, thank goodness they've been identified and recovered, and the whole archive's been taken on by Edinburgh University. I mean, it's just brilliant. They're some of the most beautiful images of the 60s and 70s of Edinburgh and around the country. How that guy did his GP practice and produced that quantity of work is amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
But I think what I love about it as well with that style is it just has so much character. It's not about the colors being cinematic or anything. It's about the personalities of the people and how society works.
Yeah. It's what I like about black and white photography too, because it can be a bit more tricky to get that. Marketa Lusko, I can never pronounce her name. Do you know her work? She did an exhibition at the Stills Gallery last summer. She worked along with Chris Killip and a few other people in the 70s. She does a lot of black and white, beautiful stuff. A bit like Chris Killip is another one who's done that sort of work in the 70s, and he had a huge exhibition retrospective down at the Photographers Gallery in London. That's another tip to remember if you're trying to promote your work, is to think about the people who are receiving it. The Photographers Gallery in London had this big Chris Killip retrospective, and they have a stand that has books related to the exhibition. Okay, they have a huge bookshop, And there's books, and they're all 1970s, 60s, and British photography, street photography documenting. So I just said, where's the bookstore manager? And said, I've just done this book. This belongs on your shelf along with this stuff. And they said, yes. So it's about approaching them. He didn't know about the book until I showed it to him. And he was like, oh, great. This would be perfect. And they're on to their third reorder.
That's amazing.
Wow.
I was going to
So
ask you, yeah, go on.
No, go on. What were you saying?
I was going to ask you about as well that I saw a picture of you at the Martin Parr Foundation, and I was going to ask you, how did that go? How did that go about? And did you show him your book? And
Yeah, well, the Martin Parr bit was when I was doing the Kickstarter, and I had this little Rob Shaw, the book designer, also taught me about. It's called a blad, a BLAD, and you make a little kind of sort of 10-20 page proof of your book, a sample of what your book's going to be, and you show it to people to promote it and to raise funds. So I was sending this out to people to say, hey, you want to invest in this project? Because it's about Stockport. I sent a copy to Martin Parr, the Martin Parr Foundation. Just throw it out there. You got nothing to lose. And he wrote straight back.
oh wow,
I couldn't believe it.
that's
And
incredible.
gave me the quote that's on the back of the book.
Oh, wow.
It turns out that that's the other thing that Rob and I just had to, I don't want, the back of the book should be plain. Nope, the quote from Martin Parr, the Magnum photographer, is going on the back of the book. So turns out he knew Stockport Market. He'd been there himself at that time.
Really?
So, yeah, because he was at Manchester Polytechnic.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's incredible.
It is incredible.
That's
So,
like all kind of
just
ties together.
Yeah, so if you just throw your hope out there and ask, you might get back to the Guardian, to the Photographers Gallery, to Martin Parr. You just have to throw it out there. Anyway, I wrote, and then he said, yeah, and make sure I get a copy of the book. At the Martin Parr Foundation, every October is it? They have what's called BOP. What's it? Book of Photography Festival, the BOP Festival. So BOP, okay? So they have all these photography books. They have a huge hall of photographers from publishers, and they have a whole hall of self-published books. So I applied to get a table with my first edition and took some boxes down. And so I went along with other self-publishers, so a whole bunch of us there. There's a good, I don't know, 15 or 20 of us, a self-published photography book people. And he came in and he was saying hello to everybody. And he says, you owe me a book. I said, you've got my book. I sent it to you when you sent me the quote. He says,
Be mad.
and I was like, he remembered when he saw the cover, orange cover. I said, look, your quote's on the back. I sent you a copy. So he said, we'll have to come and check. So we had to go back to his book archive, his library, and make sure he had it on his shelf. He wasn't going to let me get away without one. So yeah, it was a really nice special moment. Yeah, he's a bit of a star. But it fits in very much with his kind of work, right? I mean, he's got, what, 80 books published about British customs and rituals and communities?
Culture.
Yeah. I mean, he's been into just about every institution, every community, every ritual that you can possibly come up with around the entire British Isles and recorded them.
But you must find that incredible to think of someone at that level has got your book and I put a quote on it as well.
I know. It's pretty damn special. Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
I don't know what else to say. I'm lost for words.
Well, that's how. But if you have if you have a book you've published yourself, then you apply to get a table at the BOP Festival through the Martin Parr Foundation. He's all about promoting and supporting other photographers. That was his foundation's all about.
I still think it's incredible because it all ties. It's not something, do you know what I'm trying to say? The fact that you
Yeah.
did Stockport,
Mhm.
you documented the whole of the 70s of Stockport when you were 19. And
Mhm.
then in the end of it, you had a gentleman who's really high up in photography who actually went to the Polytechnic in that
I
area
know.
and
Who
went to
happened?
that market.
I know. I
That's
know.
just madness.
It is a bit bizarre. It is a bit
Yeah.
bizarre. Yeah. There's been
Uh,
some strange connections.
I'd read on your biography on your website that you were approached by David Hurn as well, the Magnum photographer. Was
I,
that at the,
Not quite. No, I'd applied to go to his documentary photography
yeah?
college.
Was that when
In
you
Wa-
were a student already?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was after I
right,
finished my degree at Stirling.
right.
And I went
Yeah,
down for an interview at the college and they offered me a place.
yeah.
But there was other stuff going on in my life, so I decided not to take up the place.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna have some regrets for it. Don't know if you guys are familiar with Tish Murtha.
Yeah.
Well, she was there already when I went for my interview. I never met her. I just was there for the interview, but you know, her career was aided hugely by having that platform.
Mhm.
Being a woman doing documentary didn't exactly work for her in the end, but especially being a woman in photography at the time. But yeah, it would have been wonderful to be part of that stable, but it's something I hold on to as a little nugget that
Mhm.
I was offered a place at that documentary college. But the fun part about that was a couple of years ago we were in Wales. One of my sisters-in-law lives there, and I realized on the map that where David Hurn lives was quite close by.
All right.
So I went online. We were driving along the motorway, and I said, "You know, David Hurn's just 20 minutes away." And my husband says, "Well, he's driving," and he said, "Well, phone him up and let's go and visit." I'm like, "Yeah, right, you know." So I went online on my phone and I found his phone number. And I thought, "Oh, I'll just give it a shot." I dialed the number and he answered. I said, "We're just nearby," and I thought I'm a photographer, and you interviewed me once. We both, and this was just last year, and he said, "Yeah, I'll put the coffee on. Come on by." So we got off the
You
motorway
did.
to his house,
That's
and we had this sort of 2 hours of chat, and I gave him a copy of my book.
Do you carry loads about with you?
I did at the time because can't remember what I was doing.
Mhm.
I had some other, I thought,
Part
I
of
know,
the
I was taking
promotion,
some,
or
I think I was there was part of a trip that I was going to end up in London and taking some more to the photographer's gallery. I can't
yeah,
remember. Because when I take them from my stash, I sign them.
yeah,
Whereas if people order them from the distributor, they just order them from the
yeah.
distributor and they just come. Yeah. So yeah. So again, another example, if you ask, if you just phone up and ask, sometimes you might get a yes.
Yeah.
You've really
Yeah.
had an incredible time, really incredible journey
Yeah.
with it all, haven't
Yeah.
you?
Mhm.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. But I have to emphasize for all your street photography viewers, you could do a lot. You can do a lot by getting, and I'm sorry this is reversed, just says the Ross Society. This is their
Mhm.
first edition of their annual magazine. There's an article about Stockport in there. This is their second edition. It's even thicker, right? This one's already sold out.
Mhm.
This one came out this past year. And the Ross Society, if you get membership to them, there's a fantastic wealth of information, workshops, online stuff, one-to-ones you can have. They have a normal membership, they have a pro membership. There's a few of us that are pro members, and we have prints available and our books available on that through their platform. So people can buy your prints or buy your book from there through their platform. And they do these workshops around the world that are live, you can go to. They're recently expanded their workshops to include writing and putting together a story for a book, to make a book, and they'd recruit other people to come and help and teach this stuff, not just photography.
Mhm.
Really, really rich source of information. And they were the ones that really helped to hold my hand to get to the point where I was making a book.
That's
Hugely, hugely part of the whole process.
I will definitely tonight.
They were, I call them one of my midwives for the birth of the Stockport Collection. Yeah.
That's amazing. And so how can people contact you?
Just through my Instagram, there's my website connection there. On just Heidi Alexander photography.com. There's my website, there's a contact page on that. Yeah. If you're not on social media, but on yeah, Instagram. The Instagram handle is just Heidi and then ALE. Yeah, that's me there.
And there's any more questions you want to ask Damien, like the last one about like future projects?
Yeah, it's just, are you planning any more books? Have you got any other projects or has once been enough? Or
I'm really getting old, Damon. You know, it's like, oh, I'm supposed to be retired. I've been trying to claim my retirement for the last 4 years.
yeah, as it became like another job.
Yeah, honestly, it is. The sheer admin around it is quite a lot. It is quite a lot. Yeah, it's yeah, it's yeah, am I thinking of another book, another project? No, not at this point. But it's like that photographer, who was it that yeah, somebody said, what was your best photograph? The one I'm taking tomorrow. You know,
Yeah.
it's you just there's
Never
always
say
that
never.
striving, isn't there? There's always that
Yeah.
striving. I think at the moment I'm quite kind of relieved to have the Stockport stuff mostly behind me,
Mhm.
so I can do my archived, you know,
Yes.
unearth some of these gems. And sometimes I'm thinking I might, if there was a coherent theme, maybe I'll put together a wee monograph of my own work for my own pleasure. It's not because I
Yeah.
want, you know what I mean? Just I'm
Yeah,
not thinking
absolutely.
beyond that. I'm just it was a sort of amazing dream that I didn't even know I wanted to have. It wasn't on my bucket list. And then
Yeah.
it all just happened within the space of a couple of years. It was like boom, 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 boom. And it was like, okay, I'm done. All right, I'm done.
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
But
Take
no,
that off the bucket list.
yeah, but if anybody wanted to if anybody was curious, because I am less stressed now, less pressurized, was curious about any other questions around the project or anything, they'd be very welcome to be in touch with me. I'm very happy to get emails or messages or whatever.
That's great. So
And signed copies of my book are available from me.
I'm gonna get definitely a thank you.
Yeah.
I need to
Contact via the website.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's everything, isn't it? And it's been great actually hearing your projects and everything. I think it's been an amazing journey that you've been through, Heidi.
Yeah. Thank you. It has been a bit much. Yeah.
And I
But
think
the takeaway is say yes and figure it out afterwards, and don't be
Yeah.
afraid to ask and ask again, especially when it comes to the press.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
It's been a real pleasure listening how it all came about.
It's been fantastic. Honestly, your story's been one of the most interesting actually that we've had. For sure.
Really? Well, thank you. That's good.
Really.
I'm glad. Good.
And it's just been so nice to see how like it's that you grew it through COVID times and you use photos like but like now you found the photos that you did when you were 19.
I know.
Just
I know. It
And
is mad.
And there's because for 19 that's quite young to take some incredible photos like that.
And the other thing I would say, Gladys, is that it's the seeing that stuff, that work, and seeing the stuff I'm digging out of my archive, and seeing how it's not influenced by social media and all the other, you know, my original kind of influences were my photographer and this old, I don't know if you were too, you remember that magazine, The Family of Man? It was international photographs from around documentary photography, Life magazine, all that sort of stuff, that old school stuff. That was my influence. There wasn't this Instagram stuff about, oh, it should be about silhouettes, or it should be about abstracts, or it should be, you know, there
That's what
wasn't
I love
that.
about it. That's what I love
Yeah.
about it.
It is great, but I think I really am pleased to see that my original work was my own and it wasn't influenced by any of that social media stuff. You know, what they're doing, what, you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. And I think that's,
I mean, it can be inspirational, definitely inspirational for sure to see other people's work. But there's also sometimes this maybe young photographers, and I might have been influenced to think mine's not as good as theirs, or I shouldn't be doing it this way, I should be doing it that way because, you know, people are chasing followers or likes or whatever. There wasn't that audience. There wasn't that kind of pressure.
but I think that's what makes it special, is because you've created something that's personally yours.
Yes, yes.
I think that's actually quite unique. You know, that's quite unique.
It's unique's the word, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. But so this, there's a lot of amazing female photographers from that time who should have had a lot more more publicity and more support, like Tish, Murtha and stuff. Yeah,
I
yeah,
definitely agree on that.
yeah. One of the things I remember saying at the Martin Parr Foundation at my table, because it's so exhausting to be there, sitting there all day for 2.5 days, I think Friday afternoon, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. And you get so tired, you know, and same old story. I find myself just saying, this is like Vivian Meyer's story, but I'm still alive. It was the only way I could think of sort of condensing it to, you know, it's like, 8 rolls of film. That's it.
And thank you
Thanks.
so much.
Well, thank you.
Brilliant
It's
interview.
been a real
Sharing your
pleasure.
photos. It's been
Thank you.
an absolute
Thanks.
pleasure.
It's been nice to meet you too, Damon. Cheers.
Yeah, and you. Yeah, it's been really interesting.
Good, good.
Thanks,
All right, bye,
Damon, as
guys.
well. Take care.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye.